Joining us from our downtown studios is CTV political analyst Scott Reed. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, not a huge surprise. We kind of expected him to do this, but, always kind of tricky as to when, I guess for optics, when would be the right time for him to step down?
I actually think he's got it just about spot on correct. A lot of people said, well, why didn't he resign on election night? I always think that, if you've been re-elected as a member of parliament, even if your party's lost and the government has been lost, it looks a little dismissive of the electorate that just handed you a job to kick off that night. I think since then, the Prime Minister has done the appropriate thing for a former Prime Minister. He's kind of kept his head down. His interventions in Parliament have been few and discreet, and now he's going to, move on. So I think it's been a graceful exit, and I think if somebody gives 10 years of public service as Prime Minister, they're entitled to manage their own way out the door.
Yeah, and 10 years in shaping a political party that's holding its convention. What do you think will happen there in terms of Harper's role, or will he speak, and what will that be about?
Well, I think what's really interesting for the Conservatives this weekend is how do they regard the post-Harper era? There's been no non-Harper era for the modern Conservative Party. He literally built it with his hands, and as a consequence, they've got to decide where do they want to go, who do they want to be, are they going to move more to the center, are they going to continue to be something of an echo of the Reform Party movement from way back in the 80s and 90s. So I think that's going to be interesting to watch for. Also, anytime you've lost an election, when parties get together for the first time and they've lost power, they've got a choice to make. They can focus on recriminations and, haul out the former campaign advisors and flail them alive, or you can focus on renewal. So I'll be interested to watch that balance. But really, Bev, the exciting stuff is this. It's the starter pistol for the next leadership race.
Yeah.
So all the would-be contenders, a handful are declared, the big ones haven't declared yet. People are talking about draft Rona. Will that happen? If it's going to happen, it has to really kick off this weekend. So be watching for that and see where the party goes. Does it go back to its progressive conservative roots? Does it move to its Reform Party roots? Does it manage to remain knit together? All of that's going to be quite fascinating to watch.
Yeah, it'd totally be fascinating. And one could say, and before we let you go, there's never any end of possibilities, maybe even offers for, former prime ministers. But in Harper's case, where do you see him kind of landing, picking up?
Well, there's been some speculation. Some of his former aides have taken to Twitter to muse that he might be thinking about setting up a foreign policy think tank. I think it will be in that arena. Before Stephen Harper was involved in electoral politics, he was involved in policy formation, and I think that's his love. He may, pocket a little cash by sitting on a couple boards or here or that, but he's still a relatively young man in his 50s, and I think he's going to want to continue to have a voice and to try to shape debate around policy matters. He's a policy wonk first and foremost, and I think it will be the policy roots that he returns to in his post-political life.
Interesting times ahead. We didn't even get to the Liberal convention. We're going to have to bring you back on and talk about that in the coming days. Thanks so much, Scott.
Thanks, Bev.